Okay, let's look at the story of Natalee Cramer, who was trafficked at Dallas Mavericks game. She says that God saved her.
For answers. A young sex trafficking survivor is now speaking out for the first time ever. You'll likely remember the story of Natalee Cramer.
Her story made national headlines, and she disappeared from a Dallas Mavericks game at the American Airlines Center back in April of 2022. Now, police found her 10 days later with sex traffickers in Oklahoma. And now she says she is strong enough to explain every terrifying detail to our I-Team's Ginger Allen.
Now 18-year-old Natalee Cramer says the details of April 8th, 2022 and the next 10 days are slowly coming back to her, and they are very difficult to hear.
You were raped 3 times in that parking garage?
Yes, I was.
And then you were taken to a house somewhere in Dallas?
Yes, I would say 20, 25 minutes away from the American Airlines Center. And they continued to have me smoke marijuana, and they raped me again. And when I knew I was getting sex trafficked was when he asked me, he said, "Can you go take a shower and then put these clothes on so we can go down to the street?" I didn't think of selling my body, none of that.
Cramer's parents, desperate for answers, hired a private investigator who, within 24 hours, made a terrifying find. Adult ads for the young girl being sold in Oklahoma.
You remember going to Oklahoma?
No, I don't.
Did it ever occur to you, I need my cell phone, I need to call my parents, I need help?
There was times that there were a phone and I could call. It didn't run through my mind. I was running for drugs. I was running for all of these other reasons. And in that time, my family was not my number one.
The PI alerted Oklahoma City police, and nearly 2 weeks after Cramer disappeared, this picture was taken.
So I was just walking at those apartments, just like praying. I was just like, God, please have someone, something, whether it's a cop, an ambulance, something, a random person on the side of the road. And I was like, God, I can't do this. Like, I please send somebody, please save me. And not 5 minutes, a cop pulled up next to me and he goes, "Are you Natalee Cramer?" And I said, "Yes, I am."
And you had just prayed?
Yeah. Just not even like a making sense prayer, just like a plead, like, please save me. And he did. He did.
I mean, Ginger Allen joins us live. Ginger, this is a powerful story. It's also a very heavy story, and it's a story that you've followed from the beginning. I mean, how has this impacted you as somebody that has followed Natalee's story from when it happened to her at just 15 years old?
Oh my goodness. I think Natalee's parents would tell you I have pretty much lived this with their family and prayed for that little girl. She is a tough young girl, and it's taken her a long time to tell her story. You know, we actually had to cancel this interview a couple of times because she wasn't ready. And then the morning that she did it, which was last month, she said she just woke up and she said, "Today's the day and I want to do this." I have a lot of respect for her. You asked how it impacted me. I do what I do because I give voice to those of you out there that wouldn't have it without us. She's only 18 and she did this so that she could give voice to others who have been sex trafficked. It's pretty impressive for a teenager.
It's incredibly impressive, and to have that kind of strength after the experiences that she's gone through, I mean, it truly is almost unfathomable. Tell me about your story in particular, because I know we just aired a portion of it, but there is a longer version on our website, cbsnewstexas.com. If folks go to there, click on the I-Team page, what will they find?
Okay, there is a much longer version, and I would encourage every parent out there to sit down with your child, because it's some tough material, and watch this story. She talks a lot about her faith. She talks about her family. And then I'll smile when I tell this. She talks about her dog named Gunner, who when she got home from all the treatment centers, she says Gunner saved her life. She says she thought she was going to die at times. And She wants everyone to know just how real sex trafficking is, and that's why she finally decided to show her face. Let me give you an update on the case.
Yeah.
The family sued a major hotel chain out there and settled with them for an undisclosed amount. Oklahoma convicted several people for being involved in this up there. But here in Dallas, the charges were dropped against the only person that Natalee believes was involved. So that's a part of the story we're going to stay after.
Yeah, and the legal side of things continues. We do want to give a little bit of good news, and that is the fact that there has been some good come out of this story. And Natalee is now starting a nonprofit with her family. More of that is available on our website too. But Ginger, I mean, thank you for this reporting, and thank you for giving a voice to the Natalees out there that do deserve for their stories to be told.
Thank you, Natalee, for doing it. And parents, please go watch it with your children.
All right.
Okay, I'm gonna go back and, let's see, I gotta get the right one. I think it's this one. Okay, so let's check this out.
She was just kind of labeled a runaway and it was left at that. But as each day kind of went forward, just the unsettling feeling that you feel in your soul was just getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Texas parents are sharing the heartbreaking story of their teen daughter's abduction and sale into sex trafficking. Fortunately, this story has a happy ending. The 15-year-old was rescued, but her family says red tape led to delays in getting her back. I sat down with them to hear their story. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Natalee Cramer was just 15 years old when she disappeared from a Dallas Mavericks game in April of 2022. She told her dad, Kyle Morris, that she was going to the bathroom, but she never came back to their seats. She was last seen on surveillance from inside American Airlines Center, where the Mavericks were playing the Trailblazers. She was seen walking with a man in black pants and an orange sweatshirt. And we learned what happened next from Natalee herself. She's 18 now. She spoke with local Texas news outlets, and she says that she had been dealing with an addiction to vaping and marijuana, and that she'd actually left her seat to go in search of someone to smoke with. She says the man in the security footage took her to a parking garage where she learned he wasn't alone. Natalee says she was raped repeatedly in the American Airlines Center parking garage, then driven somewhere else. She says she was repeatedly given marijuana. She doesn't remember a lot about what happened that night or over the next 10 days. She told WFAA in Dallas, quote, "It's not like a guy with candy in the back of his van and you just get thrown in the back of the van. It looks like a normal conversation until it's not. You don't know you're in danger until you're in the middle of it, and you don't know what to do and you can't get out. There's no room to judge people because they can't get out. If they could leave, they would." Now, Cramer's parents, Brooke and Kyle Morris, say they were stonewalled by police because Natalee had run away from home before. The parents claim that the police didn't take their case seriously, but a Texas anti-trafficking organization sure did, and they discovered adult ads online for Natalee were surfacing. And that's how they figured out that Natalee had been taken to Oklahoma. 10 days after she disappeared, an Oklahoma police officer saw Natalee walking alone outside an apartment complex, immediately took her to get care. Multiple people were arrested, charged, later sentenced for their involvement in this trafficking operation. The man that Dallas police believe lured Natalee away from the game and assaulted her, Emmanuel Jose Cartagena, was arrested and charged with sexual assault of a child, but a Dallas County grand jury decided there was not enough evidence to prosecute him, and it's our understanding he was released. Now, Natalee's family filed a lawsuit against the parent companies of the hotel in Oklahoma where she was trafficked and raped, the Extended Stay America Hotel near the Oklahoma City airport. 8 people were charged for being involved in Natalee's trafficking. Kenneth Nelson, a convicted sex offender, is believed to have been the person staying with Natalee at the hotel. Authorities believe Nelson used someone else's Oklahoma ID to get the hotel rooms. Natalee's family also claims that hotel workers and fellow guests saw her walking around with adult men who were holding guns, and they did nothing. The lawsuit claims that the corporate owners of the hotel not only knew that sex trafficking was happening at this location, but they did nothing about it. The suit claims that, quote, all defendants chose to turn a blind eye to the crimes and trafficking going on at the ESA Oklahoma Hotel and chose to put profits over people. Nelson entered a guilty plea to felony charges of manufacturing child sexual abuse material, distributing it, child abuse, and human trafficking. He was sentenced to 25 years in prison. 2 women were accused of taking nude photos of Natalee and posting them online. Another man was arrested for second-degree rape, and the other 4 defendants faced charges connected to sexual abuse of a minor. Now, the family also says that American Airlines Center could have done more to protect Natalee as well. They say that the man accused of luring Natalee had used a fake ticket to get in, and that the man he'd gotten the ticket from was known to sell fakes. Now, Brooke and Kyle Morris, as well as Natalee, they have started a nonprofit foundation called Ashland, and the goal is to raise funds to support survivors of sexual assault and sex trafficking. By the way, as you're watching this episode of Sidebar, we actually searched for Kenneth Levin Nelson on TruthFinder, putting in his name and location. And court records confirm that Nelson was convicted multiple times for domestic violence and violating protection orders in Minnesota back in 2006 and 2007. We were also able to confirm that Nelson was convicted of failing to register as a sex offender in at least 3 states, North Carolina, Minnesota, and Oklahoma. Now, Law&Crime, we partner with TruthFinder, and we use it to get details on people involved in our stories. But even if you don't work in true crime, this can be an excellent resource to give you peace of mind, especially when it comes to tracking sex offenders that may be in your area. TruthFinder is one of the largest public record search services in the United States, and with a paid subscription service, you can get access to unlimited reports about almost anyone. And by the way, right now, if you're interested, you can get 50% off of your first month of confidential background reports. You just got to go to truthfinder.com/LC sidebar. Okay, back to this. Okay, so right now, I want to bring on 2 very special guests. I am joined by Kyle and Brooke Morris. They are the parents of Natalee, and they've been so generous with their time and generous to come on to talk about their experiences. Thank you both so much for coming on. And first, let me just say, I said this to you before we started, I am so happy that there was a positive resolution to this, and you have Natalee back. So great to see you guys, and happy to hear this. First, I just want to start, how's everybody doing? How are you doing? How's the family doing? How's Natalee doing?
We we are doing substantially better than we have been the last couple of years. Natalee is doing well and thriving and trying to find, just a new identity after everything, but she's doing very well, all things considered.
Yeah, I would say it's nice to be dealing with more typical or standard
normal
18-year-old stuff now.
Yeah.
So that's been a pleasant change.
I'm sure. Those present their own challenges, as I'm sure, but that's a whole separate conversation.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so happy to have you guys here. I wanted to talk to you about a few things. Kyle, first I wanted to ask you, the idea of you're at this game and she disappears, what was that feeling like?
Feeling of like helplessness. You're surrounded by 20,000 people and you don't even know where to begin. It's in an event that large with so many moving parts really around you. I mean, I didn't know where to go. So I did what, I guess has been kind of ingrained in us as humans in the U.S. for, my entire life, is you find a law enforcement personnel that they're there to help. That's what they're there for. That's what I did. And I talked to a law enforcement, what I thought was a police officer, and only to find out later that they're really a contractor there for the American Airlines Center. So it didn't really help me much.
And Brooke, I was going to ask you, what was it like this first parts of the investigation? I mean, clearly it started off incredibly frustrating for Kyle. Couldn't even get a hold of a police officer to find out what was going on. What was it like the first steps of this investigation?
Frustrating is an understatement. For me, I was out of town actually when all of this transpired, and I was in a mix of emotions between really needing to be with my husband and really needing to find my daughter. Natalee had run away before, so this was not completely foreign territory. So I think initially I was frustrated with her, and I just wanted someone to take my husband seriously and do what needed to be done. And that didn't happen for 3 or 4 days.
You mean police didn't
And it's
believe that she
weird,
was
like-
in danger?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a good way of saying it. They did not. She was just kind of labeled a runaway, and it was left at that. But as each day kind of went forward, just the unsettling feeling that you feel in your soul was just getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
And how involved were both of you in the search efforts? You know, were you, I know that you hired a private investigator, but were you calling the police every day? Were you putting up flyers? Were you going on social media platforms? How involved were both of you in the search for Natalee? And Kyle, I'll start with you on this one.
Very, since Brooke was out of town when this started, I was the one making all the phone calls initially and, calling the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, making sure that they had a case started there, that they were getting her picture circulated. I was calling multiple law enforcement agencies here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I was calling the Dallas Police Department, trying to get someone there to start actively investigating this. Our local police department, they were helpful, but there was very little that they could do given their distance from where our daughter actually went missing. Mm-hmm. So we were very involved outside of like boots on the ground, like actually in Dallas looking. We were making phone calls and trying to access as many different people that we could that could help us, because we didn't even know where to look. Well, once she walked away from the game, we didn't know where to go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to echo exactly what Kyle said. But additionally, I mean, yes, we put this on social media. We did as much as we could. I remember a day or so after I had come home, I drove out to Dallas just around AC just to see if I could see anything. And I couldn't. And to us, it was just kind of a needle in a haystack. We didn't know where to look. There wasn't actually a search going on for her in Dallas. So we really just felt, I think we felt kind of shackled to the situation, not able to really search, not able to do anything because in law enforcement opinion, for the majority, it was, she'll pop up, she'll come back. But I felt kind of like they were talking about maybe a lost puppy instead of a kid, just saying, oh, she'll come back. Don't worry. She'll come back.
Did you see the video of her at the center where she was walking away with this individual? Had you seen that video at that point and they still said, she was going to come back?
Not at that time.
Not at that time.
No, we did not see that till many, many, many months later.
Wow. But did police know about it and just not share that information with you?
Yeah, so that night they spent the majority of, once I had reported her missing, to my knowledge, they spent the majority of their time actually trying to have someone go back and review cameras to find out where she had gone instead of like actively looking for her.
Right.
They were just trying to go back and find out what had transpired. To, I guess, create the missing situations, but they weren't actively full out 100% looking for her, which could have potentially changed everything if they had done that.
Especially in the immediate moments after she disappeared. I feel like, and will likely always feel like, that had they had more urgency and looked immediately, I mean, we probably would have avoided this entire thing.
Because we do now know that when she had been out of her seat for about 10 minutes, she had just, at that point, she had just gone outside the building when I reported her missing. So if information had been communicated effectively to all of the officers that were working the event, I think, and I'm pretty sure you agree, that they would have found her, because she was initially walking around outside the building with a couple of guys.
Well, and I will add to that, I think the biggest punch in the gut for us was when we did view the footage, and you could see that as the game was ending and everyone was filing out of the stadium, she was right there. She was on the steps, and there was police officers around her and other people. And I just, you just can't help but think, had the officer taking the initial report simply radioed and said, "Hey, we're looking for a girl. This is what she's wearing. This is what she looks like." I mean, they would have seen her. So.
I'm sorry. That's like you said, frustrating is not even the right word to use there. And then, as this progresses, you see these online sex ads about Natalee. What was your reaction to seeing that?
Well, when we were told, when we contacted our private investigator, and he told me that he had a match based on some photos that I had sent him. I just thought he was crazy. I just thought, oh, he's found somebody else. It's not her. Like my brain was not wanting to process what it was, and I was on the most embarrassing site like you could even fathom. And just when I saw her ad specifically, it wasn't vulgar like in the terms that you would think of, but I didn't even believe it was her.
And that helped in the investigation, though, because it helped determine where she might be. And we know that she was ultimately rescued and recovered. So that, as disgusting as that was, it helped. It helped.
Well, it truly was a God thing. I will tell you, as soon as we were finally able to tell him, hey, yes, this is her, he, with just a few phone calls, and our PI is in Houston, and he called, I think, his local 911 and then asked to be transferred up to Oklahoma City. They were able to tell her, he was able to tell which hotel chain, I guess it was. And then he, when he got a hold of the Vice unit up in Oklahoma City, they helped him narrow down, again, confirming the hotel chain and, like the location and everything. And that very night, they were able to orchestrate a raid on that hotel. And I will tell you, the most interesting piece of information from that was, this was middle of the night. Some guy from Houston that we had never met, we had never vetted, was able to call Oklahoma City and talk to a 911 operator and let her know, hey, we have a juvenile, being trafficked. And they were able to get boots on the ground that night.
Wow.
To orchestrate something. Mm-hmm.
See, that's the importance of having this out there and having people see what's going on and understand that this looked odd. If you both can share, and Kyle, I'll start with you again. When you found out that Natalee had been rescued and you had the opportunity to see her for the first time, if you can both share with us what that moment was like for both of you, finding out that she had been rescued and then the first opportunity you had to see her.
We were in different states the day she was found.
Well, I do want to jump in and say the raid was unsuccessful.
Yes.
The raid to get her was unsuccessful, and in fact, inadvertently caused more separation. So she ended up being gone another couple of days.
I see. I'm sorry for that. Okay, I see. So
No, you're fine. But I think it's important to note that even though the raid happened, the raid was unsuccessful, which was terrifying.
How did it progress from there?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it did kind of motivate law enforcement a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot more news articles, a lot more mentioning of her name and showing of her picture after the unsuccessful raid at the hotel that Friday morning, early Friday morning.
Yes. What the raid did was it more or less, for lack of a better word, spooked them, the guys that,
right.
The individuals that had her. This caused them to separate from her, and they were arrested later that night. I believe
the next night.
I think maybe the next night they were arrested. But what had happened is my daughter was there when the raid took place. They had just moved her to another room. So she didn't she didn't know what was going on. And after the raid and everything cleared, she ended up just walking, trying to find help. And she met another individual that I believe she thought would help her. And in fact, he ended up sexually assaulting her over multiple days
Oh,
himself.
I'm so sorry.
So it's really like a double punch. Yeah.
So when she was officially rescued and she was recovered, going back to that, what was that moment like for both of you?
Yeah, she was in Oklahoma. I was back in Texas. At this point, we didn't know where she was going to turn up again. So once Oklahoma City Police had kind of narrowed down where she was prior to the raid, after that we had no idea. They didn't know where she went. There was several leads that were looking to take her out of Oklahoma. So I was here in Texas. Brooke was still in Oklahoma. I was actually at our local police department dropping off a couple of old cell phones that Natalee had used in the hopes that the police department had indicated they may be able to kind of peel back some layers, and they were really kind of just grasping at straws at that point. So I was there dropping those phones off when Brooke called me to tell me I got her. And I immediately left the police department, came up, grabbed my bag from the house that was already packed and ready to go. And then I started the 3-hour drive north to Oklahoma City. And once I got to the hospital, I know you had more interactions before I got there.
I think he got to Oklahoma in record time. It was it was
It's okay. Speed limits don't apply.
Not in that time. Definitely not.
Yeah, definitely. So when she was recovering, I was with her. I was actually with our PI, and we were getting together because we were going to just watch a couple of parking lots and see if we could see her. And then when the police, both undercover and on duty, came up to us and were like, hey, we got her. I didn't know what to do. I said, okay, take me to her. What do I do? And they said, well, you can't, we can't take you to her right now. And then I'm sitting in the car with RPI, and he said, you need to ask for a picture of her. And I, said, why? And he said, you need to make sure it's her. He said, too many times they get somebody, think it's the right person. You need to verify that it's her. And they sent me a photo of her in the back of the car, and it was definitely her. She looked like this, just so, what's the word? Just
like somebody who
had just
hit the end of the road.
Yeah, maybe? Just somebody it was the end for her. And I confirmed it was her. They told us to go to one hospital. And so then we're driving to that hospital, and they said, no, don't go to that hospital because there's too much media. So they said, just come to the police station. So then we went to the police station and waited. And then they called back and they said, no, she needs to go to the hospital. We're going to another hospital, like the other side of Oklahoma City. So we just drove as fast as we could. And when I got there, there was police everywhere. I knew she was there, but at the front desk, they would not confirm that she was there. And I kept saying, I'm her mom. Like, they told me to come here. And it was a good 15 minutes before whatever level of clearance it was, I could get back to her. But she was very happy to see me, but she was extremely sad. One of the very first things out of her mouth was, where's daddy?
Wow.
And I said, he's coming. And then I think you were there like within the hour. Like it was very, very quickly that he was actually there. Cause I was kind of preparing her. Hey, it's going to be a couple of hours.
Yeah.
No, he was there.
I'm so happy to hear that resolution to this. And it's interesting now because unfortunately, we live in a day and age where everything's on the internet. People have a lot of comments. People have questions. And since Natalie's been recovered, and since Natalee has spoken out about what's happened, in a way you're seeing people there's blowback, right? They're asking, well, why didn't she pick up a phone to call for help? Why did she walk away during that event and leave her dad? When you're seeing this criticism and you're seeing these questions, what is your reaction to all of that from people online?
Surprisingly enough, I will say about 10 years ago, if this had been me and someone attacking my daughter this way, I would have fought back and defended her. And I just feel like it's her story, and she may not know for many years why she did or didn't do something. And I just dismiss it. One of the main criticisms that I have seen has been mainly on Kyle, and it's why did he let her go to the bathroom by herself? Well, she was 15. I mean, but I realize on social media can be such a great tool, but also, I mean, there's just always going to be people on there that are just looking to start an argument or looking to start a different narrative, and we really just ignore it because we know the truth and we know that she has been traumatized enough. We don't tell her any of the negativity that we see. None of it. It's just not helpful.
I'll be honest, I was off social media for probably 2 years.
Yeah, 2 years.
2 years. So I'm just now getting back onto social media or Facebook.
Let me advise you, you're not missing much. You should probably get off.
I know, right?
There's nothing
I know.
great on there.
Negative comments. I mean, that's kind of what social media has invited and really accepted into our society, is people have the ability really to just say whatever they want with, they're not going to say it to your face, but they'll say it online. And I mean, it is what it is. I don't put much stock into people running off and, saying bad things about us or about our daughter. I have no doubt that we made many missteps along the way.
Sure.
And our experience over the last couple of years could be very easily examined and kind of picked apart. So, if they think they could have done better.
Well, here's the good news. There is a benefit to social media, and that is amplifying a positive message. And that's what I wanted to end with. I wanted to ask you. Yeah.
Oh, I will tell you about 95% of comments are supportive and loving, and
that's great.
Like the vast majority has been positive. It's just a sliver of people that would say something negative.
Of course, and I understand that. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, even with social media now, right? If you wanted to give people advice, right? You've gone through such an experience that unfortunately a lot of families across this world have gone through. But if you're able to provide advice to parents out there, to a takeaway from what you've experienced, what Natalee's experienced, then by the way, this could be amplified on social media, YouTube, so a lot of people see it. What would that advice be to other parents? And I'm also going to ask you about the organization that you're a part of as well, and how that can provide help to the community.
I think my advice to parents, and I was just asked this the other day, as a matter of fact, is, foster a relationship with your teens. Foster a relationship. Find out what is going on. We found out and are continuing to find out, from our daughter, just some of the things that she was dealing with, problems with friends, problems with boys, problems with, how she felt about her body, like all these things that we didn't realize were such a pressing issue in her life, because we thought everything on the surface was, fine. Everything was the status quo. And, not to say it could or couldn't have prevented it, but I just feel like there were so many things that had we maybe been a little more in tune with, that we would have seen, and she wouldn't have felt like she needed to seek validation from people she doesn't know, or from, guys and things like that. So.
And the organization, and I'm mispronouncing, is it Ashland? Am I saying it correctly?
Yes, you did say it correctly.
Good.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more about that.
So Ashland is Gaelic for dreaming or to dream, and my muse behind it was in Oklahoma City. I was sitting in the ER with my daughter. Well, we both were. And my dad was there. And I was so upset and frustrated. And I just said, you know, we've got to get legislation passed. Like, how does this even happen? How do police not pay attention? Like, you know, all the questions. And I was just like, this isn't fair. You know, I'm going to change something we do. And my dad goes, keep dreaming. And he was just saying big, and not to dampen my spirit. That wasn't his thing, but he's just like, this is an issue. This is going to be an issue. If you really want to do something, do it. But, if you just think this is something that they're just going to pay attention to overnight, you're sadly mistaken.
Right. Right. Well, it sounds phenomenal. Kyle, I'll give you the final word about that as well if you want to say anything about the organization.
So I'm Irish. So the fact that she incorporated some of my family history, I guess, or some of my ancestry into this organization, I think it's great.
Great.
It really is a great opportunity, or it's an opportunity for us to continue to educate. I think that's a big piece for the organization, is educating parents. Hey, pay attention to your kids. Social media stuff is what it is. We're not going to get away from it. The parents, I would encourage them to have an open mind, have open eyes. Mm-hmm. If you see something and it makes you feel like uncomfortable or anything, talk with your kid about it. I know that we've heard from several families over the last year or two, particularly kids that have unfortunately been taken into this kind of dark underbelly of society. They recognize some things in hindsight, right, that maybe they could have addressed. And I think for us, that's a big thing, is, talk to your kids. Law enforcement, talk to these kids. If you see them, if you see them walking down the street and you're pulling them over, or you're wanting to arrest them, talk to them. How did they get there? What led them there? Everything is not as black and white as we may want it to be all the time. There's a lot of gray.
And I will say, I have an anecdote real quick. We have become very good friends with an officer, with a police officer. And as we were making him aware to not just our story, but just kind of everything we're fighting for and all of the change, he was very upset, and he said he was so embarrassed to think about how many times he had made an arrest for prostitution or detained somebody for being a runaway, and then said, but had I asked more questions, I would have found out that it wasn't prostitution, right? Like they were there against their will. They were being coerced, and things were being held over their head to do what they're doing. And so that's also a big piece of what we're doing is law enforcement education. It's my understanding that of course they're trained on sexual assault and domestic violence and all of that stuff, and as well as prostitution, but this whole thing of sex trafficking and the manipulation tactics is still a relatively new topic.
Yeah, to detect it, to see it, to know the warning signs. Listen, this is an incredibly important and powerful message that you're delivering, and we're going to put up more information about this organization. But listening to Natalie's story, having the chance to speak with you, Kyle and Brooke, the one thing that I take away from is the strength of your family. And I think that's pretty evident to anybody who watches this. So again, I am so happy that you guys are reunited. I am wishing nothing but the best for all of you. I'm sending my best to Natalee. And again, thank you so much for the work that you're doing. And thank you so much for coming here on Sidebar to get this message out, and Natalie's story as well.
Thank you so much for having us. Yes,
absolutely.
Thank you.
You got it. Best of luck, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So there you have it. Really, really powerful words from Brooke and Kyle Morris. We are wishing our best for them, for Natalee. Just an unbelievable story, and now we get a better sense of what was happening behind the scenes. That's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. Speak to you next time.
Okay, so that's the Natalee Cramer story. happened about 3 years ago in Dallas, Texas. So I heard about that story, right after it happened. So it just goes to show you that human trafficking is happening everywhere and can happen to anybody. Okay, have a good night. We'll talk to you later.